To all the panelists, I'm going to call out your name and your titles. And if you want to expand on that with any more information about you as far as a bio, you can feel free to do that. To all the panelists, I'm going to call out your name and your titles. And if you want to expand on that with any more information about you as far as the bio. All right. It's the 10 a.m. hour, so we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Aisha White. I am the digital content manager with Visit Henry County, Georgia. Visit Henry County, Georgia is the tourism division of the Henry County Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined today by panelists who will be speaking with me today about the culture of customer service. That is an online program that Visit Henry County, Georgia has developed. And what it does is it addresses the components of soft skills, training, and also diversity, equity, and inclusion training. I'm going to start off by introducing all the panelists and let them talk a little bit about themselves also. So I'll start off by saying good morning to Dr. Ansley Booker. She is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives at Mercer University, and she is the CEO of Ansley Booker Educational Services, LLC.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I think that was an awesome introduction, Aisha, but I would like to say that my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Thank you. All right. And also, I'd like to introduce Christy Dean. Christy is the owner of Drip Through Coffee in Stockbridge, and she has a second location in College Park, Georgia. And Christy is the instructor for the Guest Experience 101 portion of the Culture of Customer Service program. Welcome, Christy.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Aisha. Happy to be a part of this. That was an awesome introduction. I want to say that it's been a world of experience in customer service with my Walt Disney World training at the Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. So I'm happy to hopefully add some value. Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to have you here. Carolyn Fraser is the financial advisor at Edward Jones, and Carolyn is also the chair of the DEI committee for the Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Aisha. I appreciate you asking me to be a part of this. This is very exciting. You know how I felt about this from its inception, your brainchild, and having taken the course, I'm very excited to talk about it. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Jana Zetto is the Partner Relations Manager at Visit Henry County, Georgia. Jana is my colleague, and she's joining us today. She's worked alongside me to develop this program.
Good morning, everyone.
And then finally, there is Maria Peck. Maria Peck is one of the other instructors as part of the DEI portion of the Culture of Customer Service. Maria is the president of She Lens, and Maria is also the Chief Operating Officer for Mark of the Potter. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here and share with the whole community.
All right, so we've got everybody introduced now. We want to get into exactly what this is, this Culture of Customer Service program. So I'll start with you, Jana. Can you describe to everybody what the Culture of Customer Service is and why you think it's important?
So yeah, absolutely. The Culture of Customer Service is sort of an umbrella initiative with two separate programs tied to it. Guest Experience 101, which is led by Christy Dean, and Hospitality for All, a conversation on diversity, equity, inclusion, led by experts in the field such as Maria Peck and Dr. Ansley Booker, who are on the call this morning. It's a great series of conversations about really important topics in our community. The reason why Visit Henry County embarked on this journey is really a couple of different reasons why all of this happened. First of all, is that we felt like it really aligned with the organizational priorities of Visit Henry County. We have several pillars that we've developed that are really a part of Visit Henry County, Georgia. And two of those pillars are to advocate on behalf of our partners on important issues. Secondly, we like to equip our partners with the tools and resources to tell their stories and encourage tourism. And we felt like these classes were really important in telling those stories. Secondly, we did a survey of our hospitality partners. We do it every summer where we ask them, hey, what kind of educational priorities are you facing in the field? Half of those surveyed said that customer service was important. The other half stated that diversity, equity, and inclusion was important. And we realized that we couldn't work in a vacuum on either topic, that it really needed to be, you can't have one without the other, customer service without talking about DEI felt like a misstep. Talking about DEI without its impact on customer service, it just all felt like you couldn't do one without the other. And then finally, we really reflected back to a study we commissioned in 2018, a research study that assessed visitor sentiment in our area. And while largely positive, overwhelmingly positive, we did have some visitors that discussed their own uncomfortability in our area and visiting. So we wanted to address that head on. And I'm really excited that we did.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I think it's important to start off by letting people know the why behind what we do, and that it's backed by this research that we've done and knowing what the sentiment is. And then we saw it reflected in not only in the numbers and the research that we've done, but just anecdotally, like in our own lives. Last summer 2020, it was so much going on in the world, and things got to this kind of heightened point. And so there was no choice but to have that kind of conversation around these type of issues within our own team. And we started to think, hey, what can we do to address that? You know, when we're looking at those surveys and seeing what those needs are. And I remember getting the inspiration from the Green Book, which is a motorist guide. And Dr. Booker actually speaks on that very topic in her course within the culture of customer service. So when we get to her portion, I'll let her talk about that with more in depth. But that was an initial inspiration for me, was the Green Book, the motorist guide, because we create an annual tourism guide of places for people to go. And so it just was a natural fit. And from there, I took it and I talked to you. And I remember having those conversations and me being like, wouldn't it be great if we could do something like this? And you were like, it's possible. And, you know, it went from there. So I'm so happy we're at this point now. So Dr. Booker, you are the next person I'll ask this question to. I would love it if you could give us a little more detail about your class, the impact of culture on consumerism, capitalism, and customer service. Could you describe it? And then maybe kind of give somebody, break it down for someone that doesn't have any sort of background with DEI training, make it make sense for them.
Yes, good morning. Thank you again to you and Jana for really working to put this on. I think it was very progressive and forward thinking with your team and with the Henry County Chamber of Commerce to offer a class like this. As a practicing DE&I professional, oftentimes in 2020 and even before that, diversity, equity, inclusion officers for not only local and small businesses and Chamber of Commerce, but in all academic settings and all any service industry, they were looking for ways and avenues to not only increase the cultural humility, empathy, and also the culture of understanding and awareness for different aspects of diversity, especially social, economic, racial, nationality, LGBTQ plus, disability, and things of that religious diversity they had in their particular workplace environments, as well as their communities. A lot of individuals were reaching out to people like myself and experts that are here on the panel with you all to provide an access point or a foundational video or workshop or even series that they could use to help increase all that cultural humility and cultural competence for their employees and for themselves, because they understood that, or they were seeking to understand the importance of culture on consumerism and capitalism in the United States, and how it impact industry and tourism in their own particular counties and industries. So I think it's very important and very progressive and forward thinking that you all provide this opportunity. And I will say that this is a great opportunity. I think it's a great course, one of the first that I've seen, not only in the state of Georgia, but also probably in the nation. And I think that's very important because, again, this gives us some foundational work that we can start from. And we talk about this being a continual learning experience for individuals. And so I think this gives them a great foundation. It's about 8 different modules that you'll see here that vary from 13 to 45 minutes in length, with short quizzes to kind of reinforce the knowledge that you've gained and the skills that you've learned, and also how to put those things into practice. And so my particular module talks really about the historical context of capitalism in the United States, particularly the difference between the northern and southern economies, and when also what does that look like in terms of tourism, hospitality now in 2021, as the United States, as well as the state of Georgia, is becoming more and more increasingly diverse in different aspects. And so I think it's very important that we review such modules such as this with the understanding that this is going to be a continual learning experience, and that this can be part of a workshop of series that you can use not only professional development, but also to increase your cultural competence and awareness, so that you can make sure that your business, whether it's small business, large, or industry, is being as inclusive and as welcoming as possible, and so that it's being accessible to all those in your consumer base, and that you're not intentionally or unintentionally excluding individuals from different or particular groups here in the South, as we continue to become a more globalized and industrialized part of the country. I hope that's a very long answer to it. Question.
No,
But I try to get all 3 parts. I tried to do all 3 parts.
I appreciate that. I think it was a tall order that I gave you there, but no, that was great. And I think that you really drove home a lot of the important points. Once again, going back to the why. If people are like, well, first of all, they want to have an understanding of what it is and why it's important and why it should be applicable to their business. So those were great points that you made. Thank you so much. And I forgot really quickly, a reminder to anyone who may have any questions that you want to submit to any of these panelists. You can go to the Q&A section and feel free to drop your questions there, and we will address those at the end of the conversation. So Ms. Peck, you are one of the other instructors for the Hospitality for All class. That one is called Understanding Latinx. Could you describe your topic and let us know how it's relevant to you?
Absolutely. Thank you again to the Henry County visitors for inviting me to take part in this amazing opportunity to train and to educate the community about my culture, the Latino culture. I've been here since 1987, when the Latino culture was really small, and now we have grown exponentially, close to 1 million Hispanics in the state of Georgia. So I've been here for a long time, like I said, in 1987. And it was a pleasure for me to provide some understanding about the Latinx culture, about the difference within our own community, and the difference between terminology like Hispanic versus Latino, or, how we all act differently, and we may all speak the same language, Spanish, but there are few words that differ from country to country, and how we're very family oriented. When you see the course, you really get into culture, what's important to us, and how you can really reach with the customer service, how you can really reach out to our community, which is so strong and has a purchasing power of $1.9 trillion, which makes us really a strong community to target, right? Because if somebody's in business, like myself, like Christy, we want to target those people that are interested in buying our products. So it was a really wonderful opportunity to talk about what makes us a strong community and how you can reach us as a customer.
Thank you so much, Maria. And yeah, you make great points. I think when we go back to the purchasing power, which is at the root of a lot of these courses or a lot of these modules, then I think that it opens people's eyes to just how impactful these different groups are, and making sure that you're serving them in whatever way they need. Because if you're not doing that, then as a business owner, you could be losing money. And then internally, when you look at retention for your workforce and things along those lines, you want to make sure that you have a welcoming, warm environment where people feel like they can be themselves when they're working at your business. So those are great points. So Carolyn, as both a business owner and and you've taken the Culture of Customer Service program, and also you are the chair of the DEI committee, I want to know what your feedback is. What are your thoughts on the content that's covered in the program? Uh-oh. Oh, you're on mute. Got
Sorry.
it. You're fine.
Thank you for asking me to, again, take the course. And I remember you saying, when you take the course, don't multitask. You've got to, you need to be engaged, you need to pay attention. I will say it was not hard to pay attention. It was, as an individual, and as my experience is as a Black woman, and I know what that's about. And I also am aware that I want to know and need to learn about other areas of diversity, because diversity is not just being a Black woman. And I knew that I was lacking in that area. And first and foremost, this course taught me how much I need to learn. And as a business person, I pride myself, and if you look on my website or on my LinkedIn or whatever, I talk about having, serving a diverse client base. And I'm proud of that. But there's so much more that I need to learn and I need to be aware of. And it was fantastic. I learned so much. The modules that were specific to different groups was very helpful. And, I'm taking notes and writing notes, and hopefully I can go back and look at it again for future reference. But I encourage everyone, and not just business people. I mean, there is a business case for diversity and inclusion, and we all know that. But outside of that, just to be a responsible and great human being, and to relate to and be respectful of each other. We don't always understand. Even if we don't agree, it doesn't matter. It's about, mutual understanding and mutual respect. And it just brought so much to me. I said to my husband, you need to take this. Like, I feel like everyone should participate and get this knowledge. It was amazing. It was incredible. And I highly recommend it. And, I've had my own missteps that I'm, not proud of, and just helping me to be more aware as a person, as a business owner. It was great. I can't say enough about it.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. That's great. Great feedback to hear. And I hope that anyone that's watching and on the fence at any point, considering it, that they will go and look at the courses and take them. I've put the URL for the Hospitality for All into the chat. So if anyone wants to follow that, and they can find information at the link. All the information about the instructors and their bios are listed there. So you get the chance to see an overview of what the class is about and get to meet these people and have dive into their bios and what their backgrounds are. And that's amazing. But yes, I'm definitely so happy to hear that was your takeaway from it. And it is definitely on both levels of it. Yes, there's a business case, but as a human, because at the end of the day, we all deserve respect. And so, if you're being served, it's going to be a good positive exchange between the person behind the counter and the person, in front of it, if there's mutual respect there. And so that was my, intention, was to do that coming from a human standpoint, but then also knowing what our business needs were. So we wanted to marry that. And these instructors are brilliant people who are able to drive that home, to present this information, tie it back to business and how it affects your bottom line. And then also just give you relevancy when it comes to just like culturally. And so I think they all do a great job at that. And yeah, it is interesting, and you don't want to multitask. You get sucked into it. No one knows all things. And I know I learned a lot of things. There were things I'm like, oh yeah, I'm aware of that. But there were so many things I had not considered. There were moments where I was like, and like, right, and taking notes, because it's great to have that insight. There's intersectionality in different people that fall into different categories, but no one knows all things.
Aisha, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Please, if I may. One of the things that I really appreciated from each of the modules was the idea that nobody expects anyone to be perfect. Like we're going to make missteps, and we need to learn from them, but no one's going to attack us if we misnomer or something like that, with the intention. If we've got good intentions and we're willing to learn, there's a lot of grace that I appreciated because I need it.
Yes, definitely. No one's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We can probably think back on things we've said or done and cringe thinking about it. But yes, definitely. No one's like in trouble or being, it's not supposed to be a criticism on people. It's just supposed to inform them. The tagline for Culture of Customer Service is better informed, better explored, because our tagline for Visit Henry County, Georgia is better explored. And if you are a better informed person about these diverse groups of people, then these people can better explore our area with ease. And then you can be someone who provides these resources for them to explore. And that's the thought process behind it. We're talking about customer service. So I'm going to pose this question to everyone that's on the panel. I would love to know what some examples of good or bad customer services that you've experienced personally. I'll say avoid naming business by name, but if you can talk about your experiences, whether they were good or bad, something that stood out to you, and then what was the result of the interaction? And whoever feels like responding.
I can take it.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we run a retail shop in North Georgia, and COVID was a very challenging year for all of us, but it also brought a lot of really strong feelings in our customers, especially when you have some unique requirements. And at that point, we were asking everyone to wear a mask. We're a non-essential retailer, so we felt that was important to protect everyone in the shop. And so we had some resistance from our customers. So we had to really do some digging deep in our souls to understand and support our employees when we were facing the resistance from some clients to abide to our new rules that were new. They're different. Everyone is afraid of something different when you don't understand it completely. So empathy really was a big piece of how we handle the situations, with a lot of respect, empathy, kindness. And we just did a good job explaining our reasoning. And I think that was a really successful way to manage a difficult situation, really bring it down to a level of, we're humans, we're afraid as well. These are our reasoning behind our actions right now. We hope that you can understand and respect them, and we hope to see you in the future. So that's how we handle those. So they could go really, really bad, or they could go really, really well. So, we had a little bit of both, and mostly well. So we're proud of taking the time to educate our employees on how to manage difficult situations. And it's a lifelong lesson as well.
Yes, I agree. That's a great example. And I love that you talk about empathy, because I think that that's at the heart of understanding people overall, and not wanting to just be combative with somebody, but to get come from a place of understanding. And that's how you were able to manage to reach those people and communicate with them in a more effective way. So that's a great example. Does anyone else have any examples of good or bad customer service experiences?
Yes, I'll share if that's okay. I will say that it's just starting with, I'll do the bad first, because we know that you need like 10 or 12 good things to erase one bad experience, right? Being
Yeah.
a consumer. And so I think it's very important, the example that Maria just gave, and how she's a small business owner, was able to look at her consumer base and acknowledge some of the experiences that her customers were having, and to make adjustments accordingly, right? But one of the things I will say, as a consumer here in Georgia and all of the United States, particularly here in Middle Georgia, in the southeastern United States, I've had good and bad experiences. And just acknowledging also my intersectionality, like Carolyn talked about earlier. Most prominently, or more visibly, the first thing that you see about me is that I'm a woman, and that I'm a woman of color, particularly a Black woman. And so with that, and thinking about back to my particular module, looking at sometimes how racism and sexism and people's own biases, as it relates to people of color, women in the southeastern United States has been really difficult for me in some aspects. So some of the bad things that I've actually witnessed is being not greeted properly when you enter into a business, whether it's small or large retailer. Actually being ignored totally. Having people intentionally look the other way so that they do not have to answer any of your questions. Um, Really having being scrutinized. One thing in particular that happened post COVID when there was the most retailers did an adjustment to their return policy, based upon the length of time you could return something, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I was returning something, and one of the customer service representatives distinctly asked me with a line of people behind me, was I returning it because I wasn't able to afford it? And so for me, it was like I purchased it, so obviously I'm able to afford it. And so that should not have been a question if you were going to provide me a great customer service experience. The line of questioning should have been, are you returning this, yes or no, and for what reason? And there should be an itemized list of reasons that does not discriminate against or make this assumption that someone's socioeconomic status, if that makes sense. And so, at that moment, I had to, determine as a D&I professional how I'm going to address this and how I'm going to handle that. And so with me, for me, that's always addressing the managers in charge, going to corporate if necessary. Because I think that's important because that really impacted my experience. And for someone like myself, my dollar is just as good as anyone else's that enters into your store. I think it should be valued because, again, as we talked about the buying power and the racial majority makeup that is not only happening in the state of Georgia, but across the nation as it continues to grow, these people are going to be a part of your consumer base. And so again, if you want to make sure that you are still being a profitable company or individual, you need to be aware of your consumer base and those that you're serving and give them the best customer experience that you have and that you can offer, and making sure that everyone feels valued and celebrated. And the list could go on and on. We can talk about experiences that Oprah's had. We can talk about experiences that people have had being followed around by individuals, with this assumption of criminality. Because again, we see with someone's on implicit bias, those things come out in their nonverbal and verbal actions. So, being when someone walks to the store and you automatically don't make eye contact with me, you move away from me. And there's this assumption that either I can't afford it or that I'm a criminal, actually being followed around in a store. And this is local, middle Georgia businesses, small and large, literally being followed around in a store. And so those are just some of the experiences that I've had, good, bad, and indifferent. And just to focus on the good. So recently traveling outside of the state of Georgia, I noticed that there was a lot of signage post-COVID that I think is very great, that celebrates inclusivity, that celebrates welcoming all individuals. And so one of the things that I noticed on this particular door when I was entering into this restaurant, it says, "We welcome all at our table." And it was a cute little sign. It was great. And that was a signal to me and a flag to me that they saw me and they wanted me to be a part of their experience, right? They wanted to provide me the best customer service experience. I did not have to wait for a table. I did not have to frequently ask, for refills or anything of that nature. It wasn't assumed that my social economic status was low or subpar because I was a woman of color. And so I think it's important that we do these small yet intricate ways of inviting people, right? Because the exclusionary part is very easy to do. The inclusionary part of bringing people in and welcoming people, that is an intentional act that people sometimes have to be trained on, they have to be quizzed on, and they have to make sure that it's a continual learning experience, because sometimes we only know what we know, right? And for someone, for myself, I was born and raised in the South, born and raised in Georgia, but I've traveled the country and internationally. So I'm a little bit more aware than some people, but the lack of awareness is not an excuse for how you treat people, if that makes sense, because there still needs to be a culture of accountability to make sure that we're giving everyone an equal and equal, affordable, and making sure that access is provided for all our consumers. So I'll be quiet now because I feel myself getting on a soapbox and on a tangent, but I also want to make sure that I provided some of that. And I'll talk a little bit about that historical piece as well with the discrimination and harassment, particularly with some of the marginalized groups that we have in our community later.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Booker. And thank you for those very real examples, because I can relate to that. I've been followed before in the store. I've been, chased out of the store with me and my siblings. We were kids. There's different examples that I could list off. And so it's not exclusive to one person. It is a very real experience that many of us have. And acknowledging that and wanting to equip our tourism partners with the resources to, first of all, know that, come into the knowledge that that is a lived experience for many different people, and how to address that and how to make sure you're not making someone feel uncomfortable when they come into your business. So thank you so much for sharing those. And in that question of asking what the good or bad experiences were and what the result was, I wanted to, bring that out. And you're showing people that that's something that it stayed with you. And what you said at the top of the response was that like it takes like 13, 14 good things to erase that one bad experience. And it's so true, because that's the thing that sticks with you often. Either it's such an amazingly great customer service experience that you remember, or it's so horrible and it takes a
Mhm.
while to even forget that. It sticks with you. And so that leads into the question I have for Christy, which is, as an instructor of the Guest Experience 101, you're talking about customer service, talking about these soft skills that people need. I want to know, could you explain the importance of good customer service? And if you'll just talk a little bit more about how it's relevant to anybody in the hospitality field or any customer facing business.
Sure thing. So Laura Luker with Visit Henry County opened up with a Maya Angelou quote with the Guest Service Experience 101, which says that I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that pretty much sums up Guest Service Experience 101. When we hire through coffee, for example, I want to make sure that people are smiling when they come to their interview, but I always tell them training never stops. But what's important to me and our business is that everybody gets treated with respect. They get a hello. We are human. We can mess up a recipe. It happens, but we're not going to apologize for poor customer service because we're just not going to tolerate it. It's important that people feel welcome because you want them to come back. You want to be open to all. Something recently I have seen in a hashtag is believe in a better South. And I want to believe in a better South. And I'm happy to be a part of this guest service experience. And that's my passion, is customer service. We all have bad days, but we need to learn how to, have empathy for other people and know that the person coming to patronize your business is the person that is paying your paycheck. And I think that is really important to drive home to employees, but then also for management and business owners. It starts with you. It's internal customer service. If you don't have that with your employees or your associates, it's not going to spill over directly with front-facing customers. And I think that's very important that it starts internally and spills over with those face-to-face customers. So I think it's, again, really important. Empathy. We talk about all of that in Guest Service 101. I shared some tips and tricks from Walt Disney World. I will say that was the most, that's where I learned a lot in the food and beverage industry, because I will tell you, we probably experienced, when you think you've heard it all, you haven't. But we learned how to move forward with that. And I also think, when I talk to individuals about, what's your favorite guest service experience, and not to name drop, but a lot of people mentioned Walt Disney World or Chick-fil-A. I mean, those are some great guest service experience for a lot of people, and that they can correlate with. So.
Thank you very much, Christy. And yes, that speaks to even the examples that you gave. Chick-fil-A or Walt Disney, they are known for their brand of customer service that's given and going above and beyond in these ways. Obviously, those experiences stick with people, and that's why we're still talking about it. And they've had that level of success. I also love the point you were making about it starting internally, because I know, and maybe you all can relate, but when I go into an establishment, sometimes you can sense when things are off internally. Like, I've walked in before and like people are arguing with each other behind the desk. I'm like, okay, this is awkward. I just came to like order some food, and you can see that there's some sort of, disagreement or things going on. And so it definitely, you can sense it and you can tell when things are off internally, whether it's not a welcoming environment or whatever may be at the root of the disagreement going on internally. So I love that point that you were making about making sure that's established so that it flows over into a great customer service experience outwardly. So I was going to ask you guys a pretty similar question about if you've experienced discrimination. It kind of goes into that good or bad customer service experience. I don't know if you have anything distinctive to answer on that. If not, then I'll just move on to another question. Because I think that in a lot of ways that played into the customer service experience overall. So yeah, I'll go ahead and move on to the next question and just ask you guys, or I'm sorry, you all, if you believe that customer service or diversity and inclusion training should be a standard practice for onboarding, and if so, why?
I'll answer that. Aisha, I think that for me, yes. I think as a business owner, if you should require it, and it speaks to that business owner and the business if it's not required, because it is actually up to the business owner, I believe. But I think that everyone should offer it. And if there's a business owner who does not think it's necessary, that speaks volumes. Are you looking to, again, in taking the course, just hearing about all of the money, all of the dollars that are on the table that are represented by diverse groups that business owners may seemingly not be interested in? I don't know about them, but for me, I want my business to grow and flourish, and I want to serve anybody who needs my help. Right? I've got rules as a financial advisor. If you work with me, there's certain things you have expectations of me, and I have expectations of you as my client. That has nothing to do with your ethnicity or you being a diverse individual. That does not come into play when you talk about what needs to happen for us to work together. So in terms of just wanting to expand and grow your business, nobody's going to work with someone who a business that doesn't offer good customer service. And as you said, being inclusive and making people feel welcomed and making people feel respected and understood is a part of all of that. I can remember years ago, I'm originally from the Northeast, and I've been here for a long time, over 25 years. And I remember when I first moved here to Georgia, I had from one of my first friends I worked with, and I asked her, I said, we were talking about, different things, events going on. And she talked about a race down here at the racetrack. And I said, are Black people welcome at the racetrack? And she was shocked. And she's a very good friend of mine, white female. And she said, of course they are. And I was like, there's a whole connotation about racetracks and racing, and I don't know if I would feel comfortable going. And so to your point, the whole course and the stamp of certification that I went through this course is just for people who are actually not from the area, who might have concerns about, is it okay? How am I going to be treated if I go here as a diverse, as a Black person, as a member of the LGBTQ plus community? Am I going to be welcome? Because if I'm not going. So absolutely, I think it should be.
Those are great points, Carolyn. Thank you so much, even for giving your point of view as someone originally from the Northeast, because those perceptions of the South very much so do still exist, because it's based upon a lot of very real experiences that occurred and a lot of things that happen within people's lifetimes. And so, if someone sees those negative experiences, it only makes sense that they might have hesitation about traveling through the South. And so Georgia, we're no exception to, those type of perceptions. And I've seen it expressed online. I manage our social media channels, and at different points, people have expressed hesitation about traveling through certain parts, because for one person, the thought of something rural sounds quaint and charming, whereas that's a different definition for someone else. That sounds like it's secluded and maybe a dangerous place to go into. So it's going to be different for different people and based on their experiences. So those are great points you made. Does anybody else have any thoughts on whether or not it should be a standard as far as onboarding process?
And I was just going to add something to you, Aisha, and I think those are great points that you and Carolyn just made there. I think that it should be a part of the onboarding process and also for current employees. And the reason why I say current employees is because just because you've been there 10 and 20 years doesn't mean that there's not something that you could brush up on or you could increase your cultural competency and humility on, right? So the reason why I say it should be a standard of for the new employees, particularly, is because it gives that lens to that virtual signaling. So if you have this inclusivity statement, what are you going to do to make sure that inclusivity statement or your values or your mission is actually being implemented in your daily employee experience, right? Because not only does this culture of customer service impact your consumers, but it also impacts your employees, right? In your workplace environment. And just to note too, just as important is the product, but the product is just as important as the culture of the experience and the environment in which you're walking into. You have to put equal value to both of those things or all three of those things in their entirety. And I think it's the diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then also the accessibility training should be a part of your onboarding training and should be a part of your ongoing training because there are federal regulations that talk about these things, Title IX, Title VI, Title VII. And so I could point you to the EEOC websites and I could show you a plethora of small and large companies and businesses that have EEOC complaints because they're in violation of harassment or discrimination or another policy as it relates to individuals, as it relates to their race, their ethnicity, their diversity, their sexual orientation, and their disability, their veteran status, their age. So you want to make sure that just you spend just as much as this on this as you do on anything else as you groom and you intentionally recruit your employees. And I think it's very important because I think it speaks to your integrity. I think it speaks to your mission. I think it speaks to your values. And I think it speaks to your intentionality about welcoming all. And so I think it's very, very important because, again, people are indoctrinated before they come to your business or your place of business with their own biases, their own stereotypes, their own discriminatory behaviors. And sometimes people can mask these things very well because they're not politically correct, right? But these things will eventually come out in the wash or how they treat or interact their nonverbal and social cues. So if you definitely want to not only increase your inclusivity in terms of your consumer base, to tap into that capitalistic market that we're talking about, but you also make sure that you're being a good human being, a good steward of your privileges that we have here and we're endowed with as a small and local business. Because just like Christy said, your customers are paying your salary, your lights, your insurance, all of these things. So we want to make sure that not only that this is a safe and welcome environment for you as a business owner, but also for your employees, because we know that these things also impact employee retention, satisfaction, and then also recruitment. Because if they see that you are a place that's welcoming to all individuals, regardless, then I think that you're going to definitely increase your bottom line there in a number of fronts, and just not with your profits and revenue, but you're going to be a beacon of hope and light for a lot of individuals, not only for yourself, but also in your community.
Thank you so much, Dr. Booker. Those are some great points that you made. Definitely someone who may be a longtime employee that's already there, they can use the education too. It's not just for someone that's new. Because like we've been saying, no one knows all things. So thank you so much for sharing that. I want to know if there's any practical applications that someone can think of as far as how you can use the content that's covered in the culture of customer service within a company internally, or how you can use it externally with the customers.
Aisha, I'd like to address that if I could. I think anecdotally, I'd like our audience to know how hospitality for all and specific kind of came to be. Aisha and I were having a real heart-to-heart conversation around lunch after the death of George Floyd to talk about what was beyond statement making. What can we do to move the ball forward, to engage in these conversations? And out of that came this workshop around talking about these important issues and what it meant for our community. How could we create safe space for people to have this kind of dialogue? And I'm really thankful that I work for an organization where that was encouraged and supported, where we as friends could sit and have these great, as Carolyn said, grace-filled conversations about the implications of the work. And then to take that further up the chain to our, the director of Visit Henry County, Laura Luker, who wholeheartedly supported us in the initiative, really put legs behind it, and our board of directors has really embraced it. And so just really thankful for that. I know everyone doesn't have the pleasure of those safe spaces, but to encourage our audience to seek them out, because that's where the change can happen. And then kind of moving from there about getting to know your audience, getting to know your customer base and your employees, and querying them because to understand, where they are about things. And an example from Visit Henry County, out of our research study that I referenced earlier, our hospitality businesses said we wanted a direct point of connection to Visit Henry County. We wanted a direct point of connection to our Chamber of Commerce. And how do we do that is through the development of a partner relations manager. And that's how I kind of came to be in this position. And I'm very blessed and very thankful every day to work with our hospitality partners, particularly in this time, to try to understand what their needs are and to make great inroads into how we can kind of move the ball forward for our hospitality businesses.
Thank you so much, Shanna, for sharing that note. Yeah, great giving more insight as to how it came to be and the nature of your role. And it was from the very start of your role, us getting together and having that strategic meeting and being able to establish these pillars and things that we wanted to carry forward. So that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so a question that I have for you all is, how can you implement change in your own life? So we've talked about the business side of things, but what could you do personally that could benefit yourself and others when it comes to education, when it comes to culture of customer service, DEI, soft skills?
I'll go. I'm halfway through the DEI courses, and I'm enjoying them. And this has already been stated, but I want to re-echo, you should never stop learning. Always look for an opportunity to seek out new things every day, every week. And that's what, I try to relate to our staff. I don't expect them to stay with me forever. We can just be a stepping stone, but to not stop learning. I still, seek out courses. I'm excited to be a part of this and to also be taking the DEI course that Ansley Booker and Maria and others have put together. So just seek out opportunities to continue to grow and learn. And then, you're the one putting into action, how are you making your employees feel? Is the boss actually doing the course? Is the boss seeking to learn new things? I think that's very important that they see the action and not just the lip service.
That's so true. Thank you so much, Christy. I'll leave room for anybody else who has any input, and then I'll move on to see a question in the chat.
I add one thing, and I think you did a good point on that too. That how do you continue to learn experience, right? The other thing I say, there's plenty of books out here. I know several books mentioned a couple of modules like Blindside, disability, visibility, microaggression, everyday word, everyday world, effectiveness. So there's several books that you could just Google on Amazon or your local stores, small business as well, that talk about not only customer service, but diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And so I think being able to watch those, there's a number of webinars on YouTube and TED Talk that speak to some of the same experiences that you can watch several movies on different platforms, streaming these things. So I think that it has to be this intentional time frame. I think a lot of this is wrapped up in the professional development, offices and stories where you to bring friends in and speaker. I think this could be a lunch and learn brown bag series. Brown bag series. Or if you're doing so, I think this would be a great opportunity to use this as a restaurant development or a monthly, however you see it. But I would say this could be utilized not only for small and large businesses, but also for individual employers and community members. I don't know if you all saw that on 7. Okay. So,
Dr. Booker, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. It looks like you're having trouble hearing you. It's not muffled. I'm not sure. It's almost like feedback, maybe. I don't want anybody to miss very important things that you're saying.
What about now? Is it better?
No, it still sounds like feedback.
What about now?
Yes, that's great.
All right, cool. So I just switched really quickly. So I won't recap everything, but again, just making it a part of your continual learning experience. There's several movies, books, TED Talks, YouTube. The M-Train series are great. Looking at workplace diversity, equity, inclusion, access, and justice opportunities there. And so I think it has to be a part of this intentional learning, because you're not going to learn everything in one day, one workshop, and one series. So I think this could be a part of professional development quarterly. I know oftentimes businesses, small and large, will use this as an opportunity for lunch and learn activities. They'll also plug this into their employee affinity groups or resource groups, trainings, and it just really increases that cultural awareness and cultural competence, not only through one season, but throughout the entire year for individuals. So I think this is great. And I think that any individual that's taking this course could benefit. It's not very time consuming, but I think it's very important that you're taking the time to expand your knowledge base. Because again, as a D&I professional, it's always great to hear from other individuals and their perspectives, because not, like Aisha said, not one person knows all things. And again, you can continue to sharpen your tools, right? And increase that in your leadership toolbox. But I think it's important because on 7/13, I don't know if you all saw this, but CNBC released this top states for businesses, right? So one of the things that came out of that report is that Georgia was ranked number 6, right? Which is great. However, what you note here is that it got positive notes for infrastructure, economy, and workforce development, but we got an F in life, health, and inclusion, right? And that's for the state of Georgia. And so if you ever want to go see that report, it's CNBC, and it's the state of businesses. So I think if we're looking forward for the state of Georgia, for the county of Henry County, I think it's very important that we are aware of the issues and concerns that we have not only in our county, but also in our state as we look at diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Because again, throughout the modules, what you'll see is this trend toward the minority groups. You'll see this trend towards individuals that have great spending power. And if they're not welcomed and celebrated and included in that market, they're going to exit that market. And what's going to happen to our economy? It's going to go down. So we'll probably go from number 6 to number 46. So we don't want that to happen. So I think it's very pivotal that we use courses such as this, we use opportunities such as this that are, they're very equitable. You don't have to have an extensive amount of knowledge to complete this course, but you're using it as a foundational principle. You're taking about 2 hours out of your time, 2 to 3 hours out of your time, maybe 1 hour out of your day to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I can guarantee you that in the long run, a course like this is going to benefit more than it will hurt you. So I just want to add that.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I thank you for adding in that the stats that you gave us from CNBC. I think that's very valuable, because a lot of the times I think when it comes to the conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion, people feel like, oh, it's all feelings based and there's no fact behind it, when truly there is. There's numbers that reflect these things. And it's not just, it's not necessarily feelings based, even though empathy and those things come into it. It's real experiences for different people. So that's huge. Thank you so much for sharing that. Did anybody else have any input as far as ways that you can implement some of these practices in your own life? And also I'll ask, who do you think that this program is for? Who is this program made for? Everybody, Carolyn?
Everyone.
I told you when I took it, I told my husband, you need to take this. Everybody that we know needs to take it. And something else interesting. So I was telling my family about it. I was really was not quite expecting the experience in taking the course, which is all great. But I was talking to my younger son, who is about to go off to college, and he just graduated high school. And I was telling him about some things, and he was like, "You didn't know that?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And he said, "I guess you guys are just in a different generation." And so, that's the next generation. They're coming behind us. And so this is what our world is turning into. And, at my age and stage, not knowing a lot of things, I'm realizing I'm going to miss the boat. As a business person and as a human being, this is commonplace for my kid who, has grown up in a different time. So it's important. It's really important.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, for touching on that. I was having a conversation with my coworkers too, and even looking at the generational differences and yeah, what has become the commonplace. And it's like taking it for granted that you know these things, whereas everybody doesn't. I do see a question in the chat, and someone is asking. It's from Kim Knight. She asked if there is an opportunity to take the course, and asking about deadline and costs that's related to it. And I think Jana and I can tackle that question. So yes, there's still a chance to take the course, the courses. Culture of Customer Service is available to be taken through until August 22nd. That is the first cohort. Jana, what is the like ballpark number of people that we're looking for to sign up?
Yes, well, right now we have 10 spaces available in our cohort, 10 additional spots. So we're really challenging the community this morning to really get out and fill our 10 spaces to really make this cohort strong. It makes a great statement to the visitors coming into our community if we have a full cohort of people and businesses representing us.
Thank you, Jana. Yeah, we're really excited to have the people that have already registered for it. And yeah, so like I said, you have until August 22nd to complete it in this first cohort. So if you are interested, then you'll follow the link that's been shared in the chat. And you can sign up for Culture of Customer Service, and you can take the Guest Experience 101 section of it, and also the Hospitality for All section. We encourage everyone to take both parts of it because they work hand in hand overall. And it is free. We are looking at how to scale it for larger businesses that have a really large staff, and looking at, costs applied to that. But it's free to, if you want, we got 10 spots still remaining. If you want to sign up for one of those spots, then hey, it's open, first come, first serve. So it's welcome to anybody that's interested. We encourage you to take it. You've heard people who have taken it, who have interacted with it, who are instructors. They have firsthand knowledge of this program, and you see all the positive outcomes that could result from being involved in this. So we really, really encourage everyone to be a part of this and be better informed. We have 5 minutes left. Does anybody else have any other input, anything that you'd like to say?
Aisha, could I add one thing?
Sure.
Just a humble brag about all of our instructors involved with this program. What's really so great about each of these people at the table is they not only talked about their subject area, but also practical implications for work, a toolkit of what to do, just turnkey solutions to how you can implement DEI initiatives into your workplace. And so I really love that about this program, that we're talking about very simple, quick wins that you can make in your organization or business for DEI. And I'm really think that's one of the biggest strengths of the program. So.
I agree. I agree. That's so important, because a lot of the practical advice that they give is things that can be easily done. Because if you're someone who feels that like, oh, well, I'm not the business owner, I can't make these large decisions. There are simple things. The example that you were giving, Dr. Booker, when you went to that establishment and there was a sign that just said, "We're welcome to all." Like, that's so simple to create a sign like that and display that. But the good that does and the experience that it creates for somebody is, it's priceless versus printing out, this signage. So there's so many options that wouldn't cost a lot of money or energy that you can make to simply change someone's experience.
One of the suggestions that I gave in my course was to smile. A lot of times when you're dealing with the Hispanic community, there's a language barrier, but if you smile, you don't have to translate that smile. You're really winning a client when you do that. So that was a really simple way to implement that.
I love that.
Everybody
It doesn't cost
smile,
anything.
right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't cost anything to smile. Thank you so much. I know another great example that you gave, Maria, is when you were talking about, even with like, if there's like a language barrier, and sometimes the younger generations, the children are the ones who may be translating for their parents. And that's something that you can consider. Some people don't address children, and they get turned towards the adult rather than, and being disrespectful or ignoring, when sometimes you have to put your attention on the child who is the translator for the family. And so even just how you address everyone and making sure that it's equal and you're being respectful of everyone in a party that's before you, and not just, dismissing someone because of assumptions you're making.
Absolutely. You had some great comments on Facebook, by the way.
Oh,
Everyone
yay.
excited about the course, and I think your 10 spots will be filled up pretty soon.
That's so exciting. I'm so glad. I think that was the only question that I saw about the registration deadline and everything in the chat. But of course, if anyone else has any other questions that you'd like to, ask privately, we can definitely pass that on to any of our panelists. And you'll be able to find, like I said, more information about them on the website for Culture of Customer Service. And if you need to reach out to them, have any more further questions, we'd love to be able to facilitate that connection between these businesses and these instructors who have so much insight. So I just want to thank everybody for being here, for being on this panel. You all are very intelligent, talented people, and I value your input and value all that you've contributed to this conversation. And thank you so much to everyone watching. If there's nothing else to be said, any final comments, then I think we'll wrap it up.
I'm putting our contact information into the chat as well, Aisha. So if folks have questions, we're happy.
Thank you, Jana.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much to everybody.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yes, thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. This was amazing. Have a great day.
Have a great one.
Thank you. Bye.